All right, hey, it's Rob, and this is a video I've wanted to make for a long time now. I've been thinking about it for a while. Now, if you're the kind of Michael Jackson fan that just thinks everything Michael did was great, doesn't want to question any of his decisions, this is probably not the video for you. And maybe this won't be of great interest to a lot of people, I don't know. But anyway, I always jump in these videos and say that I'm a person who actually was around Michael Jackson in the early 90s for 2 years during the Dangerous record. That's my experience with him. I worked not for him, but just in the studio where Michael was recording Dangerous. Just happened to be my job during that time, and that's where I was. I didn't do anything significant or important. I was a studio runner. I got lunch, I answered the phones, that kind of stuff. But I was there and I observed and I made my own decisions as far as which songs I liked, which songs I didn't think were that great, and I hope that certain ones would make it on the record. When you hear a song over and over again for, I don't know, 3-4 months, at top volume, you figure, well, this is going to end up on the record for sure. They've been working on this forever. And then one day, they put that thing on the shelf and you never see it again. So Dangerous was an interesting project because it was 4 separate groups of people that were all working towards generating new song ideas and all competing for space on the same record. Dangerous itself was 76 minutes long, which was pushing the limits of what a compact disc could do. I mean, it really would have been a double album traditionally if it had come out in the 70s. But they were able to squeeze a couple extra minutes. I think 74 minutes was the usual number they told you as far as what a CD could handle. They were able to squeeze somehow a couple more minutes even out of it and got to 76. But so it was a lot of music. It was 14 songs. And I've just always felt like, it's a real mixed bag, And the reason is, of course, because Michael was producing it himself. He didn't have an overseer like Quincy Jones saying, this should go, this should stay, let's work on this isn't that great. So he was getting a lot of input from a lot of different people. And, a lot of people that were, suggesting things and pushing him in this direction or that direction had an agenda. And of course, the agenda was, I want to get my songs on Dangerous. If you're a production team and you're working with Michael and you have 7 or 8 songs cooking at the same time, well, you want to get as many of those as you can on the record. And if you are, production team B, looking at production team A's work and going, well, they've got a bunch of songs, so that's going to compete against my songs. So maybe I'll just make a subtle suggestion that, hey, Michael, that song you're working on today, I don't think it's that great. Now, I don't have any specific examples of times this happened, but I know that it did, and I felt like they were always trying to push him in one direction or the other. And of course, it's to your advantage to, promote your own material and, to make them feel good about the work you're doing. And then to look at some other person's work and say, well, it's, subpar. It's just not up to, the normal high standards that we hear on a Michael Jackson record. So it was political. There was a lot of that going on. It could have been very subtle or whatever. I mean, I don't ever remember it happening in an overt fashion. I don't ever remember any yelling or finger pointing or, anybody being pitted against anyone else. But that's really what was happening. So when the project started out, there were 3 teams of people working on it, all generating song ideas, all working on existing songs, whether Michael wrote them or, they were written along with, a producer, an engineer, somebody who was collaborating with Michael in the studio. Normally that would be someone like Bill Bottrell, who was a producer, an engineer, and a songwriter. So Bill Bottrell was coming up with ideas. A lot of these had been worked on even before the record started. Bill had been working with Michael in 89, in early 90, before the actual recording started. Same story with Brian Loren, who had been, generating ideas and putting grooves together and stuff in 89 and 90. We heard a lot about Brian Loren this week because they found a treasure trove of his tapes, and they're selling off these early demos, these songs that were considered for Dangerous but never included in the final project. Sadly, Brian was the only person out of these 4 production teams that didn't get any of his songs onto Dangerous, and those are the songs that are going to be up for auction soon that were discovered in the storage locker in Southern California this week. So again, it was just political, and it was an unusual situation. Usually a band goes in and they make a record and they've got 10 or 12 songs, they record them, maybe there's a couple extra that are B-sides or bonus cuts or whatever, and they're done. Well, Michael just kept cranking it out, kept working and working and working and working, and it just got to the point where there was so much input and so much material, and there was only one Michael, as I heard Matt Forger say in a recent podcast, and he was being stretched thin between all these groups of people working on the record. Now, like I said initially, there were 3 groups of people. Bruce Swedien is longtime engineer who also kind of took a production role. Bill Bottrell, who we had also been working with for a while, and Brian Loren, who was kind of a newcomer but had been working with Michael for a year previous to the beginning of the formal Dangerous sessions. So these people were all working to try to just stir up the pot and come up with songs that Michael would fall in love with and want to include on this record. And then after like a year, maybe even close to a year and a half of working on this record, I started working in the studio around April 1990, which was about the beginning of the project. It had maybe started in February or March or something, but towards the beginning for sure. And the record didn't come out till November of the next year, 91. So at some point, like in the early months of 1991, I think, maybe my timeline's a little off, but all of a sudden, Teddy Riley entered the picture. And Teddy Riley came in, and the whole focus seemed to go to Teddy and all the stuff they had been working on for the entire year with Bill Bottrell, with Bruce Swedien, with Brian Loren, just kind of got put on the back burner. And as a matter of fact, some of the songs that they were generating became Teddy Riley songs, and then Teddy started to work on songs like Dangerous, which was a Bill Bottrell song, but then Teddy started to work on it. So there was like a cross-pollination stuff going on or whatever. Anyway, so that's kind of the backstory. And, Michael just could not decide what was going to be included on this record. We had a big meeting with the execs at Sony. He played them 2 hours of music and said, "This is my new album." Well, you can't put 2 hours on a CD. So he just could not decide which songs he, liked, which songs were going to make the cut, which songs maybe would fall by the wayside. And there's a video that leaked out as well. Unfortunately, it was stolen off of Brad Sundberg's laptop at one of his seminars. I think that's where this video came from. And in the video, Bruce Swedien, who is, one of the producers, the engineers, is going through the ultimate track list for Dangerous way early, and it didn't end up being that. Like Blood on the Dance Floor was included at this point, which didn't end up on the record. But anyway, so as they were going through, Bruce said, "There's too much music. You have 2 choices. You can either edit the songs down, make them shorter, or you can just cut a few songs altogether." And Michael meekly said, "Edit." He did not want to cut or remove any of the songs. He wanted everything on this record. I mean, literally it could have been a quadruple record. Each one of these production teams could have come up with 45 minutes of music on their own. So anyway, as it progressed, like I said, some songs, fell by the wayside. They didn't make the cut or whatever. As it turned out, all of Brian Loren's songs were removed from the project. They had kind of a falling out. Their relationship soured or whatever. I don't know what's kind of behind the scenes stuff. I was not privy to that in my position sitting in the front office answering phones. But anyway, all his songs were kind of disregarded. Partially, I think, because of just the stylistic concerns that Michael had, that they sounded too much like the stuff he had been doing previously. He really just kind of was under the spell of Teddy Riley and this new Jack Swing sound, this kind of, metallic and these hard samples and these really harsh, industrial sounds. And that's the thing, he really fell in love with, and that's the direction he started going in. And then all this other stuff, like I said, just kind of sat on the back burner for a while. Anyway, so the album finally came out. It had 14 songs on it. And, it just, like I said, was a mixed bag. From what I expected the album to be to what it turned into, was 2 different things. So I'll go through the track list right now as I put it up on the screen, hopefully over here. We'll see. It's a new feature I'm trying where I can do a split screen. But anyway, so we can call it side one. Side one was pretty much all dominated by Teddy Riley songs. Jam, of course, with Heavy D, Why You Wanna Trip on Me, In the Closet, of course, the duet with Princess Stephanie of Monaco, the song that was originally supposed to be a duet with Madonna, She Drives Me Wild, Remember the Time, Can't Let Her Get Away, and Heal the World. And then we'll go to side two. We'll say it starts off with Black or White, Who Is It, Give In to Me, the song with Slash on guitar, Will You Be There, Keep the Faith, the kind of gospel flavored song, Gone Too Soon, and Dangerous. So that ended up being the final track list of Dangerous. And like I said, just being a person who was there for 2 years, I could just tell you that it was not what I expected it to be. We had to wait in line in that cold, evening of November, whatever day it was, when the album came out in November 91. I had to stand in line at Tower Records and buy copies because the record label didn't bother to provide us with any. And we were all kind of surprised by the final track listing. And, it just seemed like it was like, multiple personalities, like, bipolar. Like one side was New Jack Swing and the other side was like children's songs and slow, ballads and stuff. And it almost seemed like, two different artists had worked on this record. So what I always wanted to do is just say, if it, was up to me to decide, and believe me, they never would have asked me, but what would have made it on the record, what wouldn't have, I want to just put together my ultimate Michael Jackson track list for Dangerous, the way I think it should have been. And there are really 6 songs on this record that I would probably give the old heave-ho to. Why You Wanna Trip on Me, She Drives Me Wild, and Can't Let Her Get Away. We'll call that on the first side. Those are all 3 Teddy Riley songs. There are Teddy Riley songs that I like, but these aren't them. I think they're just kind of not memorable. There are a lot of sound effects. She Drives Me Wild as car horns honking and car screeching and these metallic banging snares. It sounds like you're banging on a trash can. It just was like a trendy sound that really didn't carry over. And I think when you have an artist like Michael, you're looking at like his legacy. When you're working on his record and you're looking at things that will be interesting like 20 years from now. And I just feel like Teddy Riley's stuff was more in the moment. I feel like the quality of the songwriting just wasn't there. It was a lot of, like I said, sound effects and, just interesting technological things, but it just didn't hold up for me. And it's just a personal preference. I'm sure a lot of people love these songs. Anyway, so Why You Wanna Trip on Me, which kind of reminds me of like My Prerogative or whatever. I don't know. She Drives Me Wild, which I do not like at all. Just silly sound effects song. Can't Let Her Get Away is a little better, but again, I just don't find that it really stands up quality-wise. When you go to the second side, Who Is It? The Bill Bottrell song. It's just kind of this plodding song that has this just like gigantic, like Godzilla's footprints in the ground bass, and it just like shakes your whole car when you play it. But the song itself is just like, it just kind of goes along and nothing really interesting happens in it. Give In to Me, I'm not a fan of. I think it's basically well loved by the MJ community because Slash played on it, but the song itself is just okay. It's just like an average rock song written by Bill Bottrell. Matter of fact, I was there when it was written and being worked on. One of the few times I was actually in the studio watching as something was done, and I saw him play guitar on it and helped him out, helped him set up things and plug in cables or whatever. But Give In to Me, I'm just not that big a fan of it. And Gone Too Soon. I think I left one off here too. Maybe 7 songs out of 14. That's half the record I don't like. Gone Too Soon. Gone Too Soon's an okay song, and of course it's about Ryan White, and we know why he wanted to add it to the record, but it's just stylistically like it sounds like it could be like a Frank Sinatra song or something or other. And then the one I left off this list, I think, was Heal the World, which to me is just sappy, and it just sounds like a song, not a song that, kids would be singing, but like a song for children, like should be on a children's record. So I don't know. It just didn't fit. I don't know how you could have Heal the World, and then on the other side of it, you could have a song like Jam or something or other, like this industrial, hardcore, proto, hip-hop, New Jack Swing, and then you have this like super sappy Disney ballad on the other side. It just doesn't work for me to have both of those on the same side. Again, my personal preference on all these. So I would say I could probably cut off 7 out of those 14 songs if I had got the choice to choose, if I had the chance to choose. So what would I put in its place? Well, let's start from the beginning. They're not in any particular order. I haven't checked the running time. It may be too long. I just picked 14 songs that I thought, well, this is my definitive Dangerous. Finally, 15 minutes into this video, we're getting to it. Jam, sure, that's a cool song. It's got the cool heavy D rap in it. That'll stay. In the Closet, I think it's a cool, edgy, interesting song. Of course, the subject matter and whatever, controversial, and, again, was supposed to be with Madonna or whatever, but I think that's a pretty good tune. Remember the Time, catchy tune, kind of a nice mid-tempo groove. Definitely keep that on there. Dangerous, I think, is a good song, but I do not like what Teddy Riley did to it. There's an earlier version of Dangerous. This is the one you can find on YouTube where the studio wall fell on Michael's head, and they used the sample of him getting bonked on the head in the beginning. I've made a whole other video about that, just that event happening because I was there that day. Anyway, I think the earlier version of Dangerous that Bill Bottrell worked on is more interesting than the stuff Teddy Riley eventually did to it. I just don't like that version as much. I would throw in this song called If You Don't Love Me. If You Don't Love Me is a very cool kind of 50s pop rock song that Bill Bottrell worked on. It's a little repetitive, but it's a very up-tempo, cool song. Again, you can find this leaked out on YouTube. And I've even done a cover version of it on my channel. I think it's just a cool little fun song. I wish that had ended up on Dangerous. Someone Put Your Hand Out is kind of like a Quiet Storm, slow ballad with these great backing vocals that Michael worked on forever. That's, like I said, one of these songs, like we just heard it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then it just disappeared. And it's like, that's not going to be on the album if they put so much work on it. So Someone Put Your Hand Out, you can hear that as well on YouTube. Very cool song. Black or White, I think, is a great song. And of course, I would want it recorded on the record, but I hate the dumb intro. I mean, come on. It's just silly. It would be cool for the music video to see the kid, giving his father, the finger and telling him he's going to play his rock music and he's not going to listen, even though it was totally stolen from that Quiet Riot video or whatever. It would have been fun for the music video, but I don't think we needed the audio of that on the record. I think they could have just cut that out and started right at the beginning of the song. Would have been great, but definitely Black or White would stay. Keep the Faith, I think, is a fantastic song. I've also done a video about the development of that song and the problems Michael had trying to sing it. You can look for all this stuff on my channel, but Keep the Faith is a very nice song. Definitely would include it. Earth Song, I think this is the one big omission. I think Earth Song is like one of the best things Michael has ever done. Just a fantastic, amazing song that they put so much work into it, so big and lush and huge, and there were multiple musicians and multiple, sessions that it took to, make this song a reality and different versions and edits and things. And the fact that Earth Song is not on the record, I just, was shocked. I could not believe it because it's such a cool song. It was released after, but it should have been included on Dangerous. Serious Effect, now we're getting into the Brian Lorenz songs. I definitely think Brian Lorenz songs, and I've said this before, were easily as good as some of the Teddy Riley songs that got on the record, even the ones that I don't like so much. But Brian's style was kind of interesting. He was kind of like a retro funk guy. He did a lot of stuff on the Moog bass. He had kind of a sound, a signature, just like Teddy Riley did, but his stuff was more retro, where Teddy Riley's stuff was more forward-facing, more futuristic. I understand Michael's pressures and why he wanted to stay current, and he did not want to be accused of, Michael's losing his edge, and there's artists like Prince out there who are pushing the envelope, and Michael's resting, and going back to, music he did on Off the Wall or whatever. It's not current or anything like that. But Brian Lorenz put a lot of work into the record. I made a video about this as well, that he got a raw deal, and I think a couple of Brian songs should have been included on the record after all the work they put in. I'm going to say Serious Effect and She Got It are pretty decent songs and should have been included on the record. They fit in, I think, better than some of the Teddy Riley songs that ultimately ended up on the record. Again, you had 4 production teams working. They all were doing individual things. Brian Lorenz had like the retro funk stuff going on. Bill Bottrell was the rock guy, Bruce Swedien was the orchestral guy, the ballad guy, and then you finally had Teddy Riley, of course, who was the new Jack Swing guy, went in a whole other direction when he came around. Anyway, so we'll move right along. Oh, I do have Earth Song in here twice, so now I messed up. So maybe we're only going to have 13 songs on our record. For All Time, a very nice ballad. I think For All Time was cut because it sounds kind of like Human Nature, but it's a good enough song, I think, to stand on its own. Also written by Steve Porcaro from Toto. So For All Time definitely should be there. And Will You Be There? It's a cool song. It sounds a little too much like Lean On Me, the Bill Withers song, but it is a nice song. It's very well produced. It definitely needs to be included. So let me go through my numbers here. Yeah, so I think that's only 13 songs. So a baker's dozen of songs. I'll stop right there. Dealer's choice on the last one, or maybe it didn't need to have 14 songs. But anyway, that's just an example of some of the songs. Maybe Blood on the Dance Floor could have been added back, and that'd be the 14th. But anyway, I've been going on and on about this, but I do enjoy talking about Dangerous and thinking of those good old days when I worked on the record and hearing all this great music, and now to look back on it and think of what Dangerous could have been. You know, for me, it's like I said, it's kind of a disappointment in some ways because I know there were just really good songs that should have been included on that record and were not. And other things that were put on there that I feel like, I don't know, whatever. He made decisions and it was his prerogative to do that. But, you know, I don't always agree with the choices as far as, you know, the songs that were ultimately selected for the record. But that was the problem with this record, is with no producer, you know, it was all on Michael's shoulders. He was getting input from all different directions, being pulled in a million different ways. And, you know, he had to, at some point, just pull the plug and say, all right, this is it. This is what's going to be on the record. And, you know, they had gone through multiple different sessions of trying to figure out what's going to be here, what's going to be there, what are we going to use, what are we, you know, what are we going to leave behind? And eventually they just got to the point where they just had to put the thing out. Like, all right, we got so much music, we're just going to put it out. And, you know, like I said, just kind of like a mixed bag, in my opinion. Some people may love the record. Some people may think it's perfect the way it is, or that, you know, it's his best album. Certainly has some great songs on it, and certainly lots of songs that got left, you know, behind. And now we're dealing with all these unreleased songs that people are dying to hear, that, you know, some have leaked out, some have never been heard. But there definitely were a lot of very good songs on that record that ultimately did not get included, that I think would have made it a better record overall. Just my opinion from a guy who worked with Michael Jackson 35 years ago. So take it with a grain of salt. All right. Thank you so much for watching. And, you know, I kind of go down the MJ rabbit hole for a while and then I get over it. So I don't know. Maybe I've got it out of my system and I won't talk about him for a bit. But anyway, love to hear your thoughts as always. We got a lot of good comments and things from the previous videos. And yeah, if I think of anything else to talk to you about, I'll hit that record button and I'll put it out. All right, thanks, bye.